A single cardboard box was all she carried when she knocked on my door just before sunset. Her hands trembled so badly that she nearly dropped it, and the quiet look in her eyes carried more pain than 1,000 tears ever could. I had waved to my neighbor every morning for almost 3 years. Yet in that heartbreaking moment I realized I had never truly seen how heavy her life had become. What happened after I opened that door changed not only her future, but mine as well. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness can change lives, that forgiveness is stronger than bitterness, and that every person deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a kind comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that may need them the most. My name is Nathan, and I lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. It was the kind of place where children rode bicycles until dusk, neighbors trimmed their lawns every Saturday, and everyone smiled politely without ever asking difficult questions. Across the street lived Grace, a young woman who had moved in with her husband a couple of years earlier. We exchanged friendly greetings while collecting our mail or watering flowers. But our conversations never lasted more than a minute. She always seemed cheerful on the surface, yet there was often a sadness hidden behind her smile that I couldn't explain. After my wife passed away from an illness 5 years earlier, my house had become painfully silent. Our daughter, Hannah, had started college in another state, and I had learned to live with empty rooms and quiet dinners. I buried myself in work as a high school history teacher, convincing myself that loneliness was simply another part of growing older. One Friday evening, I noticed a moving truck parked outside Grace's home. There was no furniture being loaded, only a few small boxes. Hours later, after darkness settled over the neighborhood, someone knocked gently on my front door. When I opened it, Grace stood there holding the same cardboard box I had seen earlier. Her face looked exhausted, her eyes swollen from crying. Yet she tried to force a polite smile. She quietly explained that her marriage had ended after months of painful disagreements and financial struggles. The house belonged to her husband's family, and she had been asked to leave immediately. Every hotel nearby was full because of a large sports tournament, and the few available rooms cost more than she could possibly afford. She apologized repeatedly for disturbing me, and admitted she didn't know where else to go. For several long seconds, I simply looked at the frightened young woman standing on my porch. I remembered how strangers had shown kindness to me after losing my wife. Without giving myself time to overthink it, I gently said, "You can stay here." The moment those words left my mouth, Grace lowered her head and began to cry. She whispered that no one had said those words to her in a very long time. She explained that after losing her job months earlier, several friendships had quietly disappeared. Even some relatives had stopped answering her calls once they learned she needed help. She hadn't expected a place to stay. She had only hoped someone would tell her she wasn't completely alone anymore. Her reply broke something inside me that I hadn't realized had been frozen for years. Grace stayed in my guest room for what was supposed to be only a weekend. Instead of feeling like an inconvenience, she slowly brought warmth back into the house. She baked bread on Sunday mornings because she remembered me mentioning that my late wife loved homemade bread. She watered the flowers that had started dying on the porch. She laughed at Hannah's old family stories. When my daughter came home during school breaks, the house that had echoed with silence slowly filled with ordinary, beautiful moments again. Still, Grace carried guilt. She searched for work every single day, attending interviews and sending applications across Ohio. There were countless disappointments. Employers promised callbacks that never came. Bills continued piling up. More than once I caught her sitting alone on the back porch, wondering if she had become a burden. I reminded her that every difficult season eventually changes, even if we cannot see how. Several weeks later, one of my former students, now managing a local nonprofit organization, mentioned they were searching for someone to coordinate community outreach programs. Grace had volunteered at food banks years earlier, and her compassion immediately stood out during the interview. She was offered the position before the week ended. Watching her receive that phone call remains one of the happiest memories of my life. For the first time since arriving at my home, she smiled without hiding any sadness. Months passed, Grace rented a small apartment nearby, but she never truly left our lives. She visited every Sunday for dinner. Hannah considered her family. Together we organized neighborhood food drives, holiday gift collections, and free tutoring sessions for struggling students. One simple act of opening a front door had quietly transformed an entire community. Before we reach the end of this story, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell us about a moment when someone showed you unexpected kindness, or when you were able to help someone who needed hope. Your story might encourage another person reading the comments today. Years later, while helping clean my garage, Grace handed me the old cardboard box she had carried that unforgettable evening. Inside was a handwritten note. She admitted she had planned to sleep in her car that night if no one answered the door. At the bottom she had written, "You didn't just give me a room. You gave me back my belief that good people still exist." I couldn't hold back my tears. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't begin with wealth, fame, or extraordinary talent. Sometimes they begin with an ordinary person, opening an ordinary door, and choosing compassion over convenience. We may never fully understand how deeply a simple act of kindness can reshape another person's future, but it almost always leaves both hearts forever changed. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who could use a little hope today. Subscribe for more inspiring stories, and let us know in the comments what message you'll carry with you after watching. Thank you for being here, and may we all remember that sometimes the words, "You can stay here," are powerful enough to change a life forever.